I've often said this terrible Albanese government is the most secretive in Australian history. No issue demonstrates this more than the Prime Minister's lies about his secret plan to bring the ISIS brides, and never forget they are terrorists or sympathisers, back to Australia. Do any have dual citizenship? If they do, then strip them of their Australian citizenship, denying their right and their children's right to come back to Australia. The Australian people have been deliberately kept in the dark. Only that last week the Prime Minister told the media in Werribee, "What we aren't doing is providing repatriation of these people." Well, this week, revelations made to my office by New South Wales corrections officers have blown his lies out of the water. It turns out the Prime Minister and the Premier of New South Wales, Chris Minns, have been preparing to accept these women for quite some time. Renovations are underway at the Windsor Women's Correctional Facility to create a new wing designed to house female terrorists. Corrections officers in New South Wales are currently undergoing a new training module called Women in Violent Extremism. This module is designed to train officers to deal with Category 5 female inmates. At the moment, New South Wales has no Category 5 inmates. I'm told that any ISIS brides, terrorists, who arrive before the new facility at Windsor is completed will be temporarily housed at the Civil Water Women's Correctional Centre. I'm also told that perhaps not all of these women will be headed for New South Wales. That raises yet more questions, to which we know the Prime Minister will never give a straight answer. Where else will these women be held? Victoria? South Australia? Who knows? Have Jacinta Allen and Peter Malinauskas also been covertly working with the Albanese government to prepare the welcome mat for these ISIS terrorists? And at what cost to the taxpayer? My rough figures would put the cost at $1,800 per day, per prisoner in New South Wales. That's more than $650,000 per year per prisoner. If these women face life sentences, then taxpayers will pay tens of millions of dollars for the Prime Minister's secretive plans to bring back these ISIS terrorists. Let us never forget what these women did. People around the world reacted with shock and revulsion at the depravity of the so-called Islamic State Caliphate. These maniacs burned people alive. They enslaved and raped thousands of women. They murdered thousands more, along with their children. They inspired acts of terrorism around the world which killed many more people, including here in Australia. They continue to inspire acts of terror, including the massacre of Jewish Australians at Bondi. These women volunteered to join this depraved cult. They were enthusiastic. They were happy to be part of it. And when it all fell apart, when the Islamic State was destroyed, they had to experience something they never thought would happen: consequences. Thrown in a refugee camp in Syria with all the suffering that goes with it. That's where they should stay. I'm confident I speak for many Australians in saying they should be left there to rot. But that's not how Labor and the Greens think. Labor and Greens snub their nose at the Australian people and pulls out all the stops to accommodate these traitors. Labor are embarrassed enough to hide it under a veil of secrecy. They've thrown a burqa over their plans, hiding these women and the assistance they're giving them. Labor is despicable. They cannot be trusted with the safety of the Australian community. They cannot be trusted with national security. They cannot be trusted to stop radical Islam. They cannot be trusted to stop anti-Semitism. These failures, culminating in the Bondi terrorist attack, will define the Prime Minister's time in office forever. It's time for Australians to stand up to the worst Prime Minister and the worst government we've ever had. Australians want their country back, minus the terrorist brides and radical Islam.
Pauline Hanson thought this would be just another moment in Parliament. Another speech where she raises concerns, asks tough questions, and moves on. But what happened next turned into something far bigger than anyone expected. because the second she brought up what she called a secret IS*S bride's plan, the entire tone shifted from routine politics to a full-blown accusation that hit directly at the heart of the Albanese government. And suddenly this wasn't just debate anymore. This was about trust, transparency, and what may be happening behind closed doors while the public is being told something completely different. Because according to what was laid out, there are already preparations underway, facilities being upgraded, staff being trained, systems being put in place, all suggesting that something serious is happening in the background. And that's the part that makes this moment so explosive. The idea that while officials publicly deny or downplay any such plans, there could be quiet steps being taken that tell a completely different story. And that contradiction is exactly what fuels outrage. Because people can accept difficult decisions, but what they don't accept is feeling like they are being kept in the dark. And Hanson leaned directly into that frustration, not just questioning the policy itself, but highlighting the potential consequences. From costs that could run into massive taxpayer burdens to security concerns that many would see as non-negotiable. And whether you agree with her stance or not, the impact of what she's saying comes from the questions it raises rather than the answers it gives. Because those answers, at least according to her, simply aren't coming. And in politics, silence or vague responses often speak louder than clear statements, leaving room for doubt, speculation, and growing public pressure. And that's exactly where this situation is heading. Because once a claim like this enters the public conversation, especially one tied to something as sensitive as national security, it doesn't just fade away. It builds, it spreads, and it forces reactions. And now the focus shifts from what was said in that moment to what happens next. Whether there will be clear denials, detailed explanations, or continued avoidance. Because each response, or lack of it, only adds more fuel to the fire. And that's why this moment matters. Not just because of the words used, but because of the bigger picture it creates. One where a government is being challenged on transparency, where serious claims are being put forward in a public forum, and where the audience is left trying to piece together what is really going on. And if even a fraction of these claims holds weight, then this isn't just a one-time controversy. It becomes an ongoing issue that could define the narrative moving forward. Because moments like this don't just disappear. They escalate, they evolve, and sometimes, they mark the beginning of something much bigger than anyone initially realized.